Welcome back to another episode of Mr. Smith's Garage. We are here in the garage with garage type stuff. So glad you joined me. Our task on this video is we're following along with the SeaDoo. This is a 95, 96, let me look here. 96 SeaDoo XP. It's a 787 motor. If you hadn't seen some of the previous videos, we were having a problem with the inner crank seals that come from the oil intake here leaking into the cylinder cavities, which it's not supposed to do because then you end up with oil in there and it can't combust. It's called hydrolock, right? It's the same thing if you get water in there, just can't do what it's supposed to do. So on previous videos, you can see those on my channel. We took the bottom end off because I was trying to not take too much of the top end off. Went from the bottom, resealed it all, hoping it's going to work. I do not have anything to test it with pressure, but you know, it hasn't taken me that long to do this. I've got a lot of other things going on, and you know, I might spend an hour on this a day or maybe 30 minutes, but that's about all the time I have. I don't have the time to do it all in one day. So what I'm going to do before I lift this, I was going to get a hoist, but then I realized my cart, the hoist won't go underneath it, so I can't like hoist it over, and I don't have a hoist from the ceiling. We're going to lift this up, kind of maneuver it in there, which is the way I've always done it before. But sometimes I do it from the top, but I don't know on this cart if it can handle me and the ski at the same time shaking it around. So we're gonna get that engine in there. But before I do that, I'm gonna kind of take the camera, show you what's going on in here so you can see how I've kind of prepped everything so that it's ready to go once it goes in. All right, so this is the inside. What we've got going here is there's my inbound fuel line. My return fuel line is back here. It's all kind of ready to go in. This is my steering mechanism. This is the water outlet so I've got that just kind of sitting here. Once I get the engine in there, I'll hook this up. I'll hook up my oil return line, which is here, my oil intake line here, my oil line for the oil injection unit is here. We've got this already kind of just sitting here because it just can't fit in there once I got the engine in there. So I'm just gonna kind of set that there until I need to attach it. Got my rear blocks on. My front one's loose because it needs to be loose in order to get that in there. The other thing I have is make sure that you got that rubber bumper there. I got my new boot. Got from OSD. If you're still there, we had a little problem there. So what I've been doing with the GoPro, the camera that I'm using, is I was having problems with it overheating with the battery. So started just plugging it in, taking the battery out altogether. I have it up on a stand. One of my clips, you know, the screw-in clip to the bottom of my tripod broke, so I've got it on a clip stand. I was showing you some stuff, and then I put it back up there. It fell, damaged the file a little bit, but basically I got to where I got this new boot. Actually ordered a couple of these from OSD. These are the rubber boots with the clamps on it. So I got that already prepped and on there, so that I don't have to worry about it not being on there. Everything else is kind of in a good prepped status, ready to move this in here. If you can see all the way across, which I think you can, what I kind of put on here, knowing that I've done this a few times and what can go on before and what can go on after, is I basically got the oil injection system in here, the starter. I got my ground cable prepped and in here. Got my fuel pump hose here. Let's see, the beginning of my exhaust manifold, and that's just, it makes it a little bit easier to grab onto some stuff. So I've got that already pre-loaded on there. So basically, and then I had this on there, but I'm thinking you know, it kind of makes it a little bit harder. You got to turn it sideways to get it in there. So took this off just to maybe make it a little bit easier. It's not going to make it much lighter. That's really only a couple of pounds. So here we go. I think we're ready to drop this bad boy in here. You know, the one thing I'm hoping that doesn't happen is my oil lines are just kind of stuck in here without a clamp on them, just because I figured it would work that way. We will see, because if the oil line falls there without me clamping or pinching it and putting it in, it's going to be a little bit of oil down there, but got it all nice and clean for now. Here we go. Let's see how heavy this bad boy is. Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm trying to think of where to grab it from to stick it in there. Let's see. Trying to keep stuff from getting pinched off different spots. So it's in there. I haven't hooked it up to the shaft yet. There's a couple things that I want to hook up before I do that, like that return water line and then the oil hoses. So let me readjust the camera so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Okay, that's not a bad angle. I don't know how stable it is, but you know, I was telling you earlier, I don't know if it cut off or not because it happened again, but I need to get some different mounting hardware for my GoPro. So we might have a little shaking going on here, but got you up kind of somewhat on the ski so you can still see in what's going on here. So that's actually a pretty good view. What I'm going to do though, so that I'm not, I'm going to leave it like that. We're going to go with it. Okay, so what I was telling you, a couple of things that we need to get hooked in here. This is our ground cable. It's going to go to the back. On this side. Okay, I think I was paused. I don't know. Hard to say. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you kind of what we went through and did. I don't know how long I was off for, but we hooked up the motor mount guard that goes to the case. We did not clamp off the boot yet. I need to clamp all these clamps. We did get the, I think it's called the water box, part of the exhaust, or that might be the water box. Anyway, we got that attached to the case. There's a bolt right there, and there was one on the other side in the back. We got my oil line hooked up and clamped. This one hooked up and clamped, which is our oil injection line. We got the back of the case in. Not sure where I had paused the camera. So anyway, we got it lined and tightened. Yep, we got it all in there solid. So really next thing to do would be we got to get some, we don't have the oil in there yet. I got to get the carburetors on. I got to get this exhaust piece on. So this exhaust piece is probably the next piece we're going to go with. I usually do the carburetors last. Although I could do the carburetors right now. We'll see. I'm going to pause. Okay, sorry about that. I'm still working on this, this whole filming thing while trying to do this work. I missed quite a few things. I kind of went back and looked at the video that I had, and anyway, we'll do some editing, maybe make it look a little cleaner when I'm done here. But here's what we got going. I got this mount on back here to the case, so that's in. And then I went through and adjusted this mount so that it was in the right spot. And then I've got basically the mounts all set up, so it's solid in the in the ski. Next thing I did is I ran this ground cable up underneath, because that's usually, it comes right up here to the battery in the back, so I like it down there. I got my oil line in that feeds from the oil tank into the case. Got my clamp done here. I did my oil injection line, clamped it. It's set up here. You might see this paper towel down here. I'm trying to see if I get any more leakage out of this oil tank. It's not full of oil right now, but I'm trying to check to make sure that that's not in there. We put in this box here. I think I mentioned that this one only has a few, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 threads hanging on that bolt. So I put some 518 Loctite on there, and just didn't really muscle it down for torque. And then the one back here is torqued to the spec for the exhaust to the case. So next thing going in is going to be our exhaust piece here, and I think I was mentioning I put a little copper silicone on there, just very thin layer, and then I've got a gasket for this side, and then we'll put the carburetors on, hook up all the linkage, and it'll be ready to test. I'm excited. I hope this thing works. This is one of the few awesome, joyful things to be able to do is to SeaDoo jet ski, whatever you want to call it. They're pretty fun. Okay, so I just hooked up the MPN. One thing I don't have in my tool set is a set of nut drivers. I need to get one of those, a set of nut drivers, because I don't use a whole lot of them. I use a lot of Allens, but you know, it might be easier to have that in the future. Oh, look at that. I forgot to clean this up. So I'm going to turn off the camera, clean this up, get this ready to put on. The side needs to be cleaned up too before I put it on. Okay, I'm back. Whew. So I had cleaned this one off, like it's, you know, it's clean, ready to go. But I had forgotten about this one. I'm glad I did clean it, because I found I forgot that there's a copper piece that actually goes in here, and it was basically stuck to this piece. So I peeled it off, cleaned it up. It's gonna fit inside this piece here, and then we'll put this piece in and fit it in there. Got a new gasket for this one, but I am going to put a little, not as much as I had on there before, but just a little bit of copper gasket on this, just a real thin coat, and then I'll put one on top of this. I'm not going to put it on here because to get this thing in there, you got to really it make it pretty messy. So, but you know, what I used to clean this thing off was, you know, a couple of picks and putty knives that basically are not going to mess this up too much. You want to be real careful not to scratch anything too bad. The other thing that we did was I cleaned up this piece, the clamp, and then I kind of preset it on here, because once you get this thing in there, you're not gonna be able to put it on there, and it doesn't fit on this side because it hits there's a piece in the back here that it hits on the back of that one. So so you want to get this in here, and you want to put it the way that you want it to tighten. So you know, I want it to tighten this way, with this piece up going out towards the hole, not towards the engine, because when this gets tightened up, you know, that piece comes out a little bit. So anyway, gotta make sure you got this on there and that it won't fall off when you're just make sure you get it the right way when you're installing. So right now I'm gonna put a little bit of that copper sealant on there. Like I said, a real thin layer. It's just the way I hope to prevent a leak. So we're just going to put just a little bit in here. Like I said, once I smear it around, I just want a real thin, even coat. Let's see if that's enough. Had way too much on there before. It didn't leak, but also didn't run, so. And it's easier to do it this way because this just fits right in there. It won't fall out. It'll stick. I did hammer this down so that it was flat on my workbench. And once again, I'm just going to put a little bit copper around here. Okay, once that's on there, and once again, this is Ultra Copper Gasket Maker. Good for maximum temperature. Let me think. So this piece, I do want to put some of this on here too. Once again, super thin layer. Not much at all in there. Can never be too cautious when we're talking about water leaks. And I think before I put this on, I want to put a little thin layer on here also, which means it's going to get kind of tricky getting it in there without getting stuff on everything, but okay. Again, it doesn't have to be a lot. That will go on both ways. Okay, so here we go. What you missed is me actually installing this. And so basically I got, you know, this stud kind of fits on there, and then I put a bolt in really loose here just so that it would hold the gasket. And then I worked this clamp for a little while. Then I made sure I could get this bolt in, and it was lined up. And then you just kind of work them back and forth. You want to get this clamp going so that it doesn't pop out of that little lip that's in there. So I got down about probably 3/4 of the way to tight, and then I worked these in to get them, you know, so that they would fit, you know, making sure that I didn't hear anything pop out of place. And then I worked this one in and then tightened this one down the rest of the way. Probably about 15 pounds of torque, and then worked these in, torqued those, and then torqued this one down. So you're kind of going back and forth a little bit here and there. Then I did these clamps, my water clamps, used my fancy DeWalt tool. It's pretty cool. This is probably like the coolest tool. It's a gyroscopic screwdriver that I've ever had. Very cool tool. And then now really what I'm getting to is getting ready to install the carburetors. All my carburetor stuff is down here. So I've got my fuel line inlet, my throttle cable, and then my fuel line outlet, my fuel pump outlet that comes out of the case there. And I think before I put the carburetors in, I'm going to attach the positive battery cable. I don't have a battery in here, so at least it'll be on there and attached. Got to make sure you remember to put your inlet fuel line up through this little bracket, and then I also need to make sure I get my oil pump line that runs off the back of the carburetors installed correctly. And so that's kind of the next steps there. These carburetors have been rebuilt. They only have probably 10 hours on them. Not very much. Fuel lines are all good. This is where the pump comes in, and then this is where the fuel line inlet comes in, and this is where the fuel line out goes out. My oil pump line is going to come off of this piece, where my throttle in is going to come in here, and then on the top is where your choke comes in. The oil pump is somewhat tricky. How it connects, to be really careful to make sure that it's connected correctly and that it doesn't have any problems. Sometimes, well, I probably should have. There are sometimes, because of the size of my arms, I don't know if it's the size of my arms or not, that it would be a whole lot easier if I was laying on a board like Superman up above this engine and actually working down inside it, versus trying to lean over and get and bend your arm a backwards way to get it in there. Okay. And then when we get the carburetors in, I'll show you how you adjust this oil pump so that it's in the right position. What I was noticing as I'm hooking up this oil pump cable is that it's almost like it's a little bit bent. It doesn't want to follow in that little groove, but you can see it's just a little off. And if it goes back too far, see how it comes off that little runner? So I just need to make sure that when I'm installing this into the carburetor that, and if I could bend the front of this back a little bit without damaging the oil pump, that's probably what I want to do. But to set it, you'll see that there's a line right here. You can probably see this on YouTube, but basically there's a line that comes up here, and you want to set that with the center of the thing on when it's on your carburetor. Just noticing that oil pump is just bent just ever so slightly, that it causes problems with the. Now once it's hooked up, it will never go back like farther than maybe like right here. It'll only go forward that way, forward that way, but the way it runs on there, I don't really like that. Anyway, I wanted to show you that because that's where I was thinking one of my problems was, but really it was the inner seals. So we're going to move back to getting the carburetors on. This is where we'll make our adjustment for the oil pump. That's probably in about the right spot. I think I wanted a little bit. What I'm doing is I'm looking down at the oil pump mechanism to make sure I got it at about the right angle. So as I tighten it this way, it brings that oil pump lever up. That's about where I want it. Okay, so got the fuel line up through that piece, the oil pump line is going underneath the line, the oil line and the fuel line, so it rests on the bottom of the hole. I'm going to put the battery cable on here. And that can go under as well, under the mount, so it just kind of stays nice and snug underneath there. That is a 10mm. Let's grab that here. Okay, there's our power. Ground is hooked up. Oil line's hooked up. Throttle cable, choke cable. Return fuel line is back here also. Okay. So, got a couple of these. I'm going to put these on first. So that's going to go on the fuel pump line. This one's going to go on the fuel in line. And then my fuel return line is back here. That's going to go on my fuel return line. Just want to make sure I have those on there so that once I get the everything hooked up, that I didn't forget to put those on. Makes it a little easier for us. Okay, throttle cable is going to come in through here. This is my throttle cable line. Actually, I usually put this in first, makes it easier. Now we'll do some adjustments once we get this all hooked up. Just goes better with the camera if I can show you kind of what's going on here. Okay, when these are hooked up, oops, and you throttle, it's going to move the oil pump and the throttle. That's what we want to see. Once again, we're going to do some adjustments here, but I just want to get these on so that I don't forget about them, in case I forget about them. Because I kind of feel like I have the general adjustment. I am not a racer. I just like to go out and have a little bit of fun. So if I can get this stuff all hooked up and it works, then I'm happy. Right? Okay. Choke cable goes on top. Because when we twist it down around, it'll be on the bottom. I want to say that was a 2mm. Yes, it is. Okay, this is. Now let's put the fuel line on. Before we do that, and we are still filming, it's always good to know, good to see. Okay. Fuel line's gonna go here. I got my clip on there. Just want to be cautious with those because I actually have, I don't know if anybody else has had this same issue, but I've broken the clamp for the fuel pump by not pulling straight off. It actually broke. Okay, so on this one down here, we're going to crimp it on the back side here. Okay, that one's on. This out of there. Hopefully you can see some of this, what's happening. I'm going to put this way and crimp that one. Straight this way. I'm trying not to block the camera. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, that's one's crimped on. Good. Now we need the return line on over here. Let's crimp that one. I think we're ready to put these on. I'm just gonna get this started so we can see where we're going. That one's on, good. So I don't put Loctite on these carb bolts because I plan on taking the carbs out every season. I just think that's gonna be what needs to happen. Let's go in there. Once again, we're not going to do these too tight. I just want it tight enough that it's going to make that seal, little intake seal. Maybe 15 pounds, something like that. Okay, now we got to make sure that the choke cable is tightened up. Super tiny little Allen on this one. That one's tight. So now I just need to adjust my choke. Okay. We have super hot weather here where I live, so the choke usually is mainly just for the first start, and then probably don't need to use the choke again all year. Yeah, I take that back because it's two-stroke. We might have to use the choke a couple times. All right, you know, I might need to get another 10mm wrench because I only have one. Oh, wait a minute. The other one's out in Jill, the white van again. Okay, let's take a look at that throttle. Throttle looks good. Make sure that the oil pump is running right. Yep. And my choke. Good. I can choke it. Good. Got everything tightened down there. Well, we're almost ready to fire this thing up. It's kind of scary, but you know, it's just got to be done. I'm not sure, you know, why I had so many problems with it before, like it was a newer motor. I think I might turn it. Oh, I still got the clamp on the back here to do. Let's make sure all these lines are in a good spot and nothing's crimped down there. That oil line's good. That's right, I don't have any oil in here. I should have another water line over here. Aha, that comes across to here. Don't go too far. Okay, so got it in here. I got the oil in here. Added a little bit of oil. Didn't put a ton of oil in there because I'm worried. Primed the oil pump. There's a little tiny. Let's see. That's a 7mm. That sticks out a little bit from the oil pump down here. Let's see if you guys can see this. Ah, where's my flashlight? My flashlight is in here. So this little nut right here that comes out, you just open that up, do your throttle a few times, and you can actually see the oil moving towards it. And once you get it up there to it, then it's primed, and then you tighten that back up. You can kind of feel, every once in a while you can feel a little bit of oil. So you can see I got a little bit of oil in there. That means that it's got the oil coming through there, as opposed to air. Really the only thing I have left to do here is hook up my battery with my ground and power, and I'm gonna turn it a couple of times without the spark plugs, just to get any residual oil out of there that was maybe caught up in the pistons, because I had it upside down when I was pulling the bottom end out, just so I don't have extra oil in there. And then I'll put the spark plugs in, fire it up, and that'll be the next video. So come back for my next one if you're interested in this. I think I'm going to put this in as reinstall the SeaDoo engine, and then start up on the next video. I'm excited about the startup. Hopefully it will work just fine, and I'm not even going to start it up with water. I'm just going to try to get fired and make sure it works, and if it does, then I'm going to go get the other one tomorrow over at Marshall's house, at my father-in-law's, and we're going to take him down to the lake and fire him up in the lake, make sure everything works the way they should, and do any fine-tuning that I need, and we'll do a video of those first rides out on the lake. I'm excited. All right, so I'll get this one edited, posted, and next one will be fired up. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining Mr. Smith's Garage. If you if you like this craziness of what I do and all the different things that I work on, then subscribe and tell all your friends so that I can get more subscribers. And who knows, maybe I'll buy another bus, like a split window panel double door. I just saw one on Craigslist today, and I was like, that'd be awesome. But a little too much money for me right now. I'd have to get rid of probably like Jill, the white 82 Vanagon, and maybe even the Porsche to afford something like a splitty. All right, thanks for joining me.